Sebastian Maniscalco has some advice for you comedy snowflakes out there. Hi, I'm Johnny Mac with your daily comedy news. Sebastian spoke to the Last Laugh podcast, and he talked about how he approaches his show. He tells the audience, instead of you saying that you're offended, I'm going to tell you you're probably going to be a little bent out of shape about what I'm saying here. And he says, and if you're in the room, you can actually feel a sigh of relief when I say that. It allows people to loosen up a little bit and actually enjoy the humor rather than looking around and going, is anybody laughing? I'm giving the audience an outlet to say, hey, he recognizes that people might be offended and people get a good laugh out of it. As a comedian, I noticed that it worked for me to say that and have a much more enjoyable set. There's a little bit of tension relief when I mention that this might cause people to sweat. It's not like I'm seeking out controversial topics. It's just that I'm always true to myself, true to what I see, and I've always been an observational comedian, so this happens to be the next iteration of it. This is what I find funny, and it's not like I'm looking to press people's buttons at all. I don't even think what I'm saying in the special is controversial. I just look at it as fun. People are having a good time with it. So no, I'm not seeking it out. I'm just being who I am. And if people have a problem with it, listen, you can't please everybody. Somebody's always going to have something to say. And if I edit myself and I don't feel the freedom to do what I think is funny, I might as well stop doing stand-up. Because then as soon as you start editing yourself, you're not going to have an act. Jenna Friedman spoke to Wisconsin Public Radio. She describes her show Lady Killer as an hour of dark feminist stand-up comedy, and it's most definitely that, an hour of comedy that may make you uncomfortable, but also might make you think about issues in ways you've probably never thought about them before. We seem to have a theme here on today's podcast. Jenna said, I think people have a very different reaction to you when you're on stage pregnant, as she is in this special. And definitely my comedy has been pretty morbid, but to be pregnant while you're doing it, the disconnect, I think, is for a lot of people, but it's so much fun to actually perform. Jenna gave birth to her child this fall. She reached out to fans on Twitter to thank them for their support. She said, to the moms who have slid into my DMs over the past few weeks, thank you for your words of encouragement. I wish I could write you all back, but tweeting with one hand while breastfeeding or pumping is challenging enough. Anyway, I just wanted to say I see you and thank you. Mike Birbiglia told the New York Times some things he's into. Among the things Mike Birbiglia is into, he's into Gerard Carmichael's Rothaniel. Birbig says Gerard's a performer who's not filtering what he's saying to please you. He's not holding back from what his truth is. A lot of art will stick with me a week after, but the thing I most cherish stick with me a month after, years after. You know, I'm going to sidebar here. I appreciate that Birbiglia said that because I've been really thinking about my best of list. I talked a little bit about it on yesterday's podcast. In the second half today, I'm going to talk about it some more. But actually, two things here. So for me, yes, what Birbig's just said, a lot of art will stick with me a week after. So there were some specials, just top of mind, not dumping on it. I watched Dion Cole's special, really funny, but it didn't stick with me. It was just an hour of McDonald's, as I call it. Like, you know, I took it in. It was fun. Didn't think about it after. Whereas something like Neil Brennan's show, I was thinking about the next day, and the really great things I will think about after. So I think Birbig's makes a good point there. Another thing, I've been emailing back and forth with Jason in Asheville about comedy, and we wound up in a discussion about the use of the word special. I was self-aware. I just used special during the Jenna Friedman segment. And Jason pointed out, you know, maybe a better use is hour. And we were just having a philosophical discussion about just the amount of content that's out there right now. You know, is every last piece of comedy, which is somebody with a microphone shucking jokes, is everything on Netflix a special, or are they just hours or half hours? And I don't know what makes a special special, and that sounds like it would be something Jerry Seinfeld would wax philosophical on. In fact, I think he did. I just did a quick Google. I didn't find a Seinfeld thing. I may have imagined that, but I found an article on Vulture. Everything to consider when making a comedy special. I'm reading this as I do the podcast live. So I'm looking at their big font. One of the questions Vulture asks, what do you want this comedy special to feel like? Is the comedy special going to feel immense, celebratory, like a career culmination? Then it's going to need a large venue, bright and vibrant lighting, lots of wide shots to communicate scale and scope, and probably lots of audience presence through both visual markers and beefed up crowd noise. Chris Rock's Bigger and Blacker from '99 is designed to convey the idea of that title. Yeah, all right. Yeah, some specials feel bigger than ours, if that makes sense. I imagine you're following my train of thought here. More big font from Vulture. Where will the special be filmed? If you're Kevin Hart in 2019, you want to make a special that signals you're a huge deal, you film in a massive arena. If you're Kevin Hart in 2020, you want to signal that you're still a real person with feelings, you film a special in what looks like the living room of your house. That's interesting. Yeah, to me, the special is usually in a pretty big theater. I feel like stadium comedy shows are trying too hard. You know, film it in the Chicago theater or something like that. Boy, we are deep into the comedy snobbery today, Johnny Mac. Woo. How many tapings? Will the special be edited together from only one show or from several performances? Most specials use multiple performances to make sure it captures the best possible version of a joke, but there's always the chance that sloppy editing can make the final result worse. Yeah, I noticed that a lot more than I probably should. I'll comedy snob. If it's special, give me one real show with the flubs, because if you ever attend a live show, the flubs can make things funnier. Anyway, we were talking about Mike Birbiglia, things that he's into. Remember that 5 minutes ago? Yes. Mike is also into deep dives. He says, this is something my wife Jenny and I like to do together. Start from a certain point and follow it where it leads you through various streaming and YouTube rabbit holes. One of my favorite finds is a 3-part British documentary series called Unknown Chaplin that shows the outtakes of Charlie Chaplin's movies. He did hundreds of takes of some of his shots. Birbiglia is into Sarah Sherman on SNL. He says Sarah's an absolutely original voice in comedy. She had the only good thing on the SNL 8 days ago, not talking about the one last night, where she came on the news to do the bit about the gay polar bears. That was far and away the funniest thing on SNL last week. I feel like they got to give her more run. Lauren, what are you doing? Lauren Michaels needs my advice. How can he be successful without taking my advice? Does Lauren Michaels even know what he's doing? Birbiglia said, I worked alongside Sarah at the Comedy Cellar, and even as a live performer, she's astonishingly alive and present, goes where the audience takes her. Birbiglia is into the Comedy Cellar. For my money, the Comedy Cellar is the best club in the world. There's the Olive Tree upstairs, which has phenomenal Middle Eastern food. Then downstairs is an intimate 150-seat club. The other night I was there and Ray Romano dropped in. You have to make reservations weeks in advance, but it's worth it. Birbiglia likes improv is life. The principles of yes and apply to everything I do, directing movies, making solo shows, working with a director, collaborating with a designer, etc., etc. Mike said, no more art snobbery in my 40s. Uh-oh, I hope that doesn't apply to comedy snobbery or I'm in trouble today. Mike said, I vowed not to be snobby about art that's popular. There are certain things I've missed out on because they were popular and I didn't think they could be good. With early Taylor Swift, I was kind of like, oh, that's pop music. That's maybe not for me. But her music is wildly personal and evocative and exciting in a way that even if she weren't the massive pop star that she was, I think she'd have a massive cult following that she would tour from. Mike's also into the YMCA. I make fun of it mercilessly in my show. There's too much chlorine, a lot of cringy nudity in the locker rooms, the towels are too small. But a bunch of the New York YMCA administrators ended up coming to the workshop shows a few years ago at Cherry Lane. They were fans of it. I realized not only are they a rec facility, they do an extraordinary amount of community outreach and great nonprofit work. I'm very impressed by them. I make fun because I love. If you missed yesterday's podcast, the New York Times had an article about their funniest things of 2022. Today, I'm taking a look at the LA Times top comedy specials. I've been working on my own list, as regular listeners know. I'll do that closer to Christmas. I still feel like it's a little early to be putting these out. The LA Times has on their list Bill Burr live at Red Rocks. That one was my least most favorite Bill Burr special of his recent specials. It was fine. It is on my list, but pretty far down. But, you know, it's Bill Burr. Bill Burr's always solid. They have Taylor Tomlinson's Look at You. I don't know if I've seen that one. And if I don't know if I've seen that one, that either means no, obviously you didn't see it, or it's completely forgettable. So I think the answer is no, I haven't seen that one. I've been trying to catch up. Ronnie Chang's Speakeasy. That was okay. I liked his previous special a lot. This one, I think I had built up in my mind that I was going to love this one, and it was fine. Norm Macdonald's Nothing Special was fantastic. That is way up my list. Ali Wong's special, Don Wong. I don't think I've seen that one either. Maybe I did. Or maybe I've just read enough articles about it. Wong spends a lot of time unmasking her desire to cheat or at least have the option. Yeah, now I'm remembering the special came out and that was the tagline. And then in April, the headline, comedian Ali Wong and husband Justin are splitting. So yeah, I probably just read a lot of articles about that special. The LA Times went with Fahim Anwar's hat trick. Haven't heard much discussion of this one. They write in comedy star parlance, the hat trick refers to performing in the 50-year-old Sunset Strip institution's 3 separate rooms over the course of a single evening. Anwar says, I came up with all my bits at this place. Why not shoot it here? And he runs sets in the original room, the main room, and finally the upstairs belly room. There are some cameos from Tim Dillon, Theo Von, Anthony Jeselnik, Mark Maron, even Quentin Tarantino. That sounds cool. I got to check this special out. Fahim Anwar hat trick. That one's on YouTube. Fortune Feimster's Good Fortune. I feel like I got about 15 minutes into it, and it was fine. Go back and rewind the podcast, the part where I was talking about specials being special. I do have it on my end of the year list, but not very high. It's fine. I'm trying to, I can't quite put in words. I've been struggling all week about what I'm looking for a comedy special, because I don't want you to think like Fortune's special or Fortune's Hour is bad or Dion's Hour is bad. They're not. They're funny. They're entertaining. And I think for what I refer to as a civilian, meaning somebody who hasn't been in comedy-related broadcasting for almost 20 years now, yeah, there's nothing wrong with sitting there and laughing for an hour. That's the whole point, right? But I'm such a comedy snob now that, I don't know, I'm looking for an extra gear. I'm just trying to explain this. I know it when I see it. But Fortune's Hour, yeah, it's totally fine. Next up on the LA Times list, Byron Bauer's Spiritual Inward. This is one of the 2 FX specials that aired on Hulu. I saw this one, right? This is the one that takes place in a boxing gym in Atlanta. It was pretty good. I thought it was cool that it was shot in a boxing ring, gave it a bit of a vibe. The comedy was fine. Next up, Hassan Minhaj's King's Jester. I'm finding many people don't agree with me. I think that special was really good. And on their list as well, Gerard Carmichael's Rathaniel. Been talking about that all week. Here, the LA Times write, look, would anybody really call Rathaniel drop dead hilarious stand-up? Probably not. So, it's a comedy special. I expect some comedy with it. Maybe. Yeah. The LA Times writes, perched somewhere between Hannah Gadsby's Nanette and any number of late-night Dave Chappelle pop-ins, the third special from the former Carmichael show has big things to say, even if the funny quotient remains naggingly incomplete. And some people have this as special of the year. I don't get it. It's nice, but, I know special of the year should be funny. Shang Wang, still number 1 on my list, by the way. Go watch Shang Wang. Trust me, Shang Wang, Netflix. Shang Wang, Netflix. I love your thoughts on all of this. Hit us up on the Facebook group, Daily Comedy News Podcast Group. You can go to the YouTube page at Daily Comedy News, and there's a community section there if you want to chime in. Would love to hear from you. Love waxing philosophical about this. Again, I'm just one dude in a basement doing a podcast. My opinions are no more or less valid than yours. And that's your comedy news for today. Follow the show for free on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, YouTube, wherever you get your shows. Join the $2 Club. Go to buymeacoffee.com/dailycomedynews and check that out. See you tomorrow.